Something very special is happening right now. Something that hasn't happened in almost 25 years. A brand new theme park is opening in the United States.
With Epic Universe at Universal Orlando.
And a lot of people are asking, should Disney be worried?
Universal's new theme park has inspired a pretty heated discourse. Oh, Disney's in trouble. Disney is washed, finished, done and dusted. Epic is the new hotness.
So today I'm doing something a bit different.
I went to see this new park for myself and experience it from the perspective of a Disney World fan, and as someone who has been covering the theme park industry for decades, to try to answer the question, should Disney be worried? Because there's a lot to that question, and Epic Universe has some surprising answers.
I am not kidding you. This is not concept art. This is real life. This is the Epic Universe episode.
Hi, I'm James from Guide to WDW, and this episode is a tribute to all Orlando theme parks, but mostly Epic Universe. Because this is a huge deal. We haven't had a new major theme park open in the US since 2001 with California Adventure. And we haven't had a new Orlando park since Islands of Adventure opened in 1999. So I have an epic-sized episode for you today. On this channel, I like to dive deep into theme parks, and today we are diving deep. I went down to Orlando and spent an entire day inside Epic Universe, riding the rides, eating the food, soaking in all the details, in some cases, literally. Now, I want to talk about what this episode is and what it isn't. This is not a final review. I went during technical previews, and I didn't get to do everything I wanted, because, as you'll see, things didn't go according to plan. But I did experience a lot. I went the week before grand opening, and I spent $144 on a ticket. Epic is definitely in a state to make some judgments and give some hot takes. So I will be sharing my honest thoughts about everything I did in the park, mainly as a comparison to Disney World, because Universal has explicitly said that they are going for Disney's crown. Universal has always been in second place in the Orlando theme park market, but now Epic Universe is all part of a strategy to take business away from Disney. In an interview with the New York Times, Universal's theme park chief Mark Woodbury said that their goal is to transform Universal from a 1 or 2 day add-on to a Disney vacation to the week-long destination and make Disney the add-on. So in this episode, I'm going to dive into how successful they are at that goal and whether or not Disney should be worried. This episode will be broken down into a few chapters. Chapter 1, a basic overview of what Epic Universe is, how the park is laid out, and what attractions there are. Chapter 2, a filmed recap of my Epic experience. Don't call it a vlog. But I'll share what went right during my visit, what went wrong, and my honest opinions on everything I experienced in the order that I experienced them. Okay, it's kind of a vlog. Chapter 3, 7 things I liked about Epic Universe. And to be fair and balanced, Chapter 4, 7 things I didn't like about Epic Universe. And Chapter 5, should Disney be worried? And there will be light spoilers throughout, but nothing crazy. There's a lot to cover, so grab a beverage of your choice. I have a cold brew right there. But let's dive in. So first of all, let's cover the basics, because as much as I've been immersed in the nitty-gritty theme park discourse, like whether Stardust Green or Stardust Yellow is better, most people aren't. Whenever I talk to regular people, they go, wait, Universal is opening a new theme park? So it's good to give a lay of the land, not only for people who aren't as familiar with Epic Universe, but also to set the stage for how Universal is targeting Disney's audience. Epic Universe is part of a $7 billion expansion to Universal Orlando. It's located about 15 minutes south of the current Universal Orlando Resort, with Universal Studios, Islands of Adventure, Volcano Bay, and City Walk. The Epic Universe expansion has 3 hotels, Terra Luna and Stella Nova, which are the value resorts, to use Disney parlance, that start around $150 a night, and are located a short bus ride away. Stella Nova has a direct walking path to the park that takes about 10 minutes. Then there's the Helios Grand Hotel, the deluxe resort, which acts as both the backdrop and a semi-icon for the park. It's not quite the park's castle, but it kinda is, because Helios Grand is located at the back of Epic Universe, offers views into the park, as well as a dedicated entry for resort guests. That resort starts at $293 a night, with the average price being around $530. But the main attraction is Epic Universe, Universal's 3rd theme park. Epic has 11 rides, 2 shows, 30 dining locations, and plenty of gift shops, spread across 5 themed lands that Universal calls worlds. The first world you walk into is Celestial Park, a cosmic-themed hub. There's lots of shops, restaurants, 2 Starbucks locations, concierge stations, and locker rentals. There's an amazing soundtrack, great water features, like a massive dancing fountain in front of the Helios Grand, and very little shade. Celestial Park has 2 1/4 attractions, with the quarter being the Astronomica splash pad. The first full attraction is the Constellation Carousel, which may be the most beautiful carousel I've ever seen, and Stardust Racers, an intense dueling coaster with 62-mile-per-hour top speeds and 133-foot top height. Both sides have 2 launches, and there's a really unique inversion element called the Celestial Spin, where the trains twist around each other. One train is over you, and then suddenly you're over the other train. Celestial Park is an original theme park IP, all cosmic themed. The story is that a mysterious person created the Kronos Tower at the entrance of Epic Universe to harness the power of the universe and create this timeless world between worlds, where artists, adventurers, and inventors can gather. If you look closely, there's a flux capacitor on the back of the Stardust Racer's vehicle, which may be a nod that Doc Brown from Back to the Future was possibly the inventor of the Kronos. Or maybe it's just a fun Easter egg. But the power of the Kronos can also be used to create portals into different worlds, and those 4 portals are the entrances to the 4 immersive themed lands. And the park is laid out really great. Unlike a park like Epcot, it never feels really too long to get from one side to the other. And walking from one portal to another means you get another little taste of Celestial Park. But let's talk about these portals. Let's start where most people go first, Super Nintendo World, because that's the world available to hotel guests for early theme park entry. Here's a quick tip. Unless you're taking advantage of that hotel perk, avoid Nintendo for the first half of the day. Mario Kart had a solid 90-minute wait all morning, and that was down to 20 to 30 minutes by the evening. And things are already changing. While I was editing this video, Universal updated the attraction list for early morning entry to include Dark Universe. I still think Nintendo will be more popular, but that should relieve the morning crowds here a little bit. After I get to go to the park again, I'm going to have a full Epic Universe guide on my channel later this summer full of tips, tricks, and strategies, so get subscribed so you don't miss that. But I'll share more tips I learned along the way in this video. So, Super Nintendo World is mainly themed to Super Mario Bros., and it feels like you've been transported into the video game. Everything is bright, colorful, and kinetic. There are the Mario characters, thwomps, and coin blocks to punch. For $44, you can get a power-up band that unlocks interactive games within the land. Great for kids or adults with poor impulse control. Yeah, I bought one. The land is extremely vertical, which is very cool visually, but there are a lot of stairs to get up and down between the levels. Stairs are a theme for Epic Universe, but you feel it the most in this land.
Holy moly, there's so many stairs.
There are 3 attractions here. Mario Kart, which is the e-ticket level dark ride, which surprisingly doesn't move fast at all. But despite that, this ride is really fun, and its big innovation are the augmented reality glasses that display the Mario Kart characters and make it feel like you're actually playing Mario Kart as you're going on the ride. The second attraction is Yoshi's Adventure, which is a slow-moving people mover-ish ride that gives you great views of the land. Very cute, but not worth more than a 15-minute wait. And the third ride is Donkey Kong Minecart Madness. In the bottom level in the very back, there's a mini portal to a Donkey Kong mini-land. This area is really fun, and the minecart roller coaster uses a new boom arm ride system that makes it feel like your coaster is jumping the track. I didn't get on this ride because it's been having reliability issues, and the capacity doesn't seem that great, so the lines were just crazy long all day. If you have that early entry perk, I'd head to Donkey Kong first if it's operating, because I think this will be consistently one of the longest waits in the park. And like all the worlds, Super Nintendo World has themed dining and shops. Next up is Dark Universe, themed to Universal monsters. You enter the village of Darkmoor. My first experience with Darkmoor was during a gloomy, very rainy morning, and that was probably the best introduction this land could have made, because it felt extremely creepy. 30 Rock fans will understand it when I say that this land is like a werewolf bar mitzvah. Spooky scary.
Boys becoming men, men becoming wolves.
I love it. The land has an original Danny Elfman score, which is fantastic. There are so many deliciously creepy details. There's a quick service restaurant called Das Steakhouse, featuring staked vampire bodies, chairs with bats, and the spookiest thing of all, Coke freestyle machines. There's also a bar called the Burning Blade Tavern, with a windmill that lights up in flame. To put it in Disney terms, Darkmoor is kind of like if the darker first half of Haunted Mansion was a theme park land, but with the scare factor turned up quite a few notches. Nothing quite as scary or intense as Halloween Horror Nights, but the spooky vibe could be a bit too much for some kids. Now, in terms of attractions, there's Curse of the Werewolf, which is a spinning family coaster. That was down the entire day I went. But the heart of Darkmoor is Frankenstein Manor, which holds Monsters Unchained, Universal's mega e-ticket monster dark ride. This is a Kuka arm ride, very similar to Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey at Islands of Adventure. But Monsters Unchained uses more physical sets and really impressive animatronic figures. I've been getting a lot of questions about the intensity of this ride, and I'd say it's fairly intense. You are being whipped around, sometimes on your back, sometimes you're being lunged forward, and there are so many monsters on this ride. Some lunging at you, and some that the Kuka arm pushes you toward. I personally found the ride to be more fun than scary, and the motion profile is a blast. Forbidden Journey can make me a bit queasy due to the heavy use of screens, but I had no issues here, because it's mostly physical sets and figures, and screens just augment the scenes. But your mileage may vary. Some people might find the motion too much, and some people may find the theme too scary, especially little kids. Darkmoor is the smallest of the lands, and you kinda feel it. Now moving on to the next portal, Ministry of Magic, which is themed to 1920s Paris, and holy moly, this land is massive and you feel it. They built a full-scale Parisian city center. It's like Universal looked at the recently expanded France Pavilion at Epcot and said, hold my butterbeer. Because this is just an insanely, impressively detailed land, with cafes and bars, statues, in-world posters, and magical effects in the windows. I had a whole conversation with a painting.
Are you here? Do you live in Paris? Are you from here?
No, I live in Georgia.
In Georgia. The country? Or across the pond in the Americas?
In America, yes.
I see, yes.
There are two attractions here. Les Cirque Arcanu, which is a Fantastic Beasts themed circus and magic show. And then the big one, Harry Potter and the Battle at the Ministry, where you take the Metroflux and somehow are transported to the British Ministry of Magic in the 1990s. Battle at the Ministry uses a new ride system that looks like a combination of Spider-Man and Tower of Terror. Now, big caveat, I didn't do either Potter attraction because things went wrong, but I did get to go into the line for Battle at the Ministry, and the scale of this queue is very reminiscent of Rise of the Resistance. Finally, the last themed world is Isle of Berk from How to Train Your Dragon. And here, they have dragons. And boy, you see a lot of them. There's something like 30 animatronic dragon figures throughout the land. This land is probably my favorite to visit during the day because there's tons of water and great kinetic energy. It's just a bit more pleasant to walk around than doing leg day at Super Nintendo World. And there are so many fun features like the dragons, character interactions, a toothless meet and greet, and attractions. The biggest attraction here is Hiccups Wing Gliders, which is a family coaster a la Slinky Dog Dash, where it's great for kids but also really fun for adults. I actually prefer it quite a bit to Slinky Dog, mainly because the terrain is much more interesting and there are some really fun, surprising moments. It's just a great ride, and I think it will be a huge hit with families, just like the rest of this land. There are also two flat rides, Dragon's Racers Rally, which flies you around on a big arm, and you have free control to use your body to spin your seat, like it's possible to do a full barrel roll. And then Fire Drill, which I heard so many people call Fry Drill, but it's just an old-timey way to spell fire. This is a shooting gallery ride on the water where you can shoot targets in other boats, but if you hit the wrong target, you will get wet and probably soaked. Finally, the fourth attraction in Isle of Berk is a show called the Untrainable Dragon. This is on the level of the Aladdin show or the Frozen show that were in the Hyperion Theater at California Adventure. And that's a compliment. This show has really great production value, with some of the best theatrical puppets I've ever seen. The story is, well, you'll hear them say this dragon is untrainable about 50 times, but it's a really solid show with great effects and good air conditioning. The dining options here are Mead Hall, which serves hearty meat and potato dishes, and there are some kiosks that serve mac and cheese cones that are extremely popular and great for eating on the go. Berk also has a pretty massive playground. Now that you know the lay of the lands, or worlds, here's how my epic day almost went completely off the rails. Now, I went by myself during an off day from our most recent Disney World vacation. I had thought about bringing the whole family along, my wife Bethany, plus our 4-year-old son and our 1-year-old daughter, and Bethany's parents. But Bethany wanted me to check out the park by myself to see if we would enjoy it as a family before we spent extra money on tickets for all of them. So the first thing that went wrong actually happened a couple days before I arrived. Universal announced that Battle at the Ministry, one of my biggest priorities for my preview day, would be closed the entire week I was there. That was disappointing, but you know, the park isn't technically open yet, so not a huge deal. Then the morning of, I checked the forecast right before leaving, and it called for 100% chance of rain. I was hoping it would be one of those Florida forecasts where that actually meant just a short thunderstorm in the afternoon, but no. From the moment I got dropped off from my lift about 30 minutes before park opening and got through security, it was torrential rain. Even though I wasn't planning on it, I decided to get some Starbucks out of necessity and to see if the rain would let up, which it didn't. So I said, I'm here, my iPhone is waterproof so I can at least get some video, and it's a brand new theme park. Let's do this. And I embarked into Celestial Park. Overall, I love Celestial Park. Universal has said that they're trying to put the park back in theme park with this hub, and I think they mostly succeed. It gives me big Epcot vibes, a great place to walk around, revel in the ambiance while enjoying a snack or beverage. Walking around here made me realize how much the redo of the center of Epcot could have used some more water features. It's amazing how far having great fountains can get you. And I can imagine this being a great venue for something like a Universal Food and Wine Festival in the future. Drinking around the cosmos might become the new drinking around the world. But back to my day. One advantage to exploring Epic Universe in a rainstorm is that the park felt empty. I was able to soak in the views, the details, and the music without having to navigate crowds. For a theme park nerd like me, this was exhilarating. I wouldn't recommend it for most people though, because I was also soaking in a lot of rainwater. This was a soggy start to a very soggy day. One disadvantage about Epic Universe in a rainstorm is that almost all the rides are outdoors, and most of them shut down because of the rain. There are only 3 truly indoor rides: Mario Kart, Monsters Unchained, and Battle at the Ministry, which was closed when I went. Fire Drill, Dragon Rally Racers, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, and even the Carousel were all closed due to rain. Now, Stardust Racers and Hiccups Wing Gliders would sometimes operate while it was raining, but I learned long ago not to ride fast outdoor coasters in the rain after an ill-fated ride on the Hulk when I was in high school. The raindrops felt like BBs on my face. So for most of the time while it was raining, I had only 2 options for rides: Monsters and Mario Kart. There are the 2 shows, but I wanted to do a ride first. Mario Kart had a crazy long wait because of early entry. Monsters had a much more reasonable wait at 45 minutes. So I headed into the portal for Darkmoor and was treated to the spookiest, foggiest, soggiest entry to the land. It was perfection. A really great team member noticed that I was filming and encouraged me to go inside Das Steakhouse before it opened for lunch service, which I'm really grateful for, because not only could I get out of the rain, but I got to explore this really dark, detailed restaurant. This was a great intro to Epic Universe, because almost every environment, shop, restaurant just has that extra level of theming that made me fall in love with Disney World in the first place. Something that they've had here and there at other Universal parks, but Epic really takes it to another level. It's everywhere in this park. After saying hi to the vampire corpses, I headed back outside and made my way to Frankenstein Manor and rode Monsters Unchained. Most of the footage you'll see is from the line because Universal doesn't allow filming on the ride itself. But this ride is awesome. It might be the most fun that I've had on a new ride that I can recall. Rise of the Resistance was the most impressive in recent memory, Flight of Passage was the most awe-inspiring, but fun? It's between this and Guardians. I just had a big stupid grin on my face the entire time. And that starts in the line, which is just the perfect level of creepy without being too scary. The pre-show had 2 animatronics, one Tory of Frankenstein that wasn't quite working. Universal is using a new projection mapping technique that uses external projectors on an animatronic face with a physically moving jaw that I've heard looks great when it works, but it's technical previews and it wasn't working for me. And then there's a walking Frankenstein figure that is massive and one of the best animatronics I've ever seen up close. And that sets the stage for the ride itself. There are a ton of animatronics and you get really close to them. Plus, there are some really great effects like fire and heat, and a motion profile that is just a blast. This ride rips. So despite the rain, things were off to a good start. That then got pretty dicey pretty quickly because it started raining even harder. I decided to go to Isle of Berk to check out the Untrainable Dragon show, which the schedule said would be starting soon. But when I got there, they said the show times had been delayed partially due to the weather. Rain really affects everything here. So I figured, oh well, I'll get some footage of the land, which is beautiful, even in the rain. But even though my iPhone is waterproof, my gimbal isn't, and it started to seriously protest being used in the rain so much. So my camera was starting to not work, and I couldn't even get into the show. The day was kind of looking like a wash at this point. But when I was at my lowest, I saw a sign. A sign that means hope. A sign that means endure. A sign that has 2 words. Pizza Moon. So I went inside and got a table and tried to dry everything with paper towels, and failed.
I am soaked to the bone. I am cold. I am wet. I'm drenched. I am feeling awesome.
I also encountered another troubling development. It was only around noon and my phone was at 30% battery because I was filming so much in the morning. Even though I brought this big charger, my phone would not charge plugged in because it got water in the USB-C port and that takes hours for it to dry out. Thankfully, I had this Anker magnetic wireless charger as a backup, and this was the MVP of my day because my phone could charge with this. And without it, I'm not exactly sure how I would have gone back to our Airbnb. So pro tip, these wireless chargers can save your day if it rains. I'll link to one below. Pizza Moon, by the way, was delightful. Delicious pizza. I got the pizza lunare, which has pancetta, roasted garlic, bechamel sauce on a purple ube crust.
Good crust, nice cheese, nice big hit of garlic. Like among the best theme park pizzas I've ever had.
The only downside for me was that this pizza is huge, very easy to split between 2 people. So as one person, I was only able to have about half, and the rest was wasted, which is a shame. I don't love wasting food. But for couples or families, Pizza Moon is awesome. It also has just the most wonderful theming. If Jules Verne made a pizza shop. Once again, the theming and detail goes way further than it needed to. Something important to know, this location seems to be mobile order only, and I think a few of the restaurants work like this. And Universal has a completely different mobile order system than Disney. You can order in the app, but then you need to scan your table for them to actually start making the food. And then they'll bring the food to your table. On one hand, this is nice, because you don't need to search for a place to sit while carrying your tray full of food, which I've done many times at Disney. The downside is that they don't start preparing your order until you have a table. So mobile order doesn't really save you time here like it can at Disney. Next, I took a very short walk over to the Plastered Owl to get what I heard is the best tiki drink in the park, the Steel Drum Smash.
That's really good. I heard that this is the best tiki drink in Epic Universe. Had to try it out. Yeah, pineapple, coconut, very tropical, on a very tropical day. It's really good. It's really not very sweet. It's more tart. Oh, it's starting to rain again.
I then headed back to Berk for the Untrainable Dragon show. Once again, Universal doesn't allow filming here, and I'm a good boy who follows the rules, so I put my camera away when the show started. So just take my word for it that it's a very cute show with some really great production value. Definitely worth doing once, and it also thankfully gave me about 45 minutes out of the rain between the line and the show. By the time I got out, it was still raining, but not as bad, and Monsters Unchained had a 15-minute wait, so I did that again. Just as fun the second time, but the pre-show was in B mode, and the Igor animatronic was broken on the ride. Other than that, it was awesome. But I was so wet that I was shivering at this point. So I did what any responsible adult would do. I went to the Celestiki Bar. Now this was a rare miss for me. Universal really raised my expectations by naming it Celestiki. I love tiki bars. Trader Sam's is just my favorite place. But Celestiki is a pretty poor tiki bar. Now, I got the Waturi Punch, which was good. Not nearly as good as the Steel Drum Smash from Plastered Owl. It's a little on the sweet side. But the big problem is that Celestiki was one of the few places that felt lacking in terms of theming. After how detailed Pizza Moon was, my expectations were sky high for Celestiki, but it feels more like a resort pool bar.
Really hoping for more space tiki theming. It's a little bland.
I was hoping that it would be more of a hangout spot, but it's just a grab-and-go kiosk. Little nitpick, not a big deal. But by this point, being in soggy clothes was driving me nuts. And the forecast was starting to look good. I felt like I could actually change into something dry. So I headed to the Nintendo gift shop in the hub. I bought a Player 1 shirt for myself, a Player 2 shirt for my son, and I got a new lease on life in some dry clothes. I also bought the power-up band because I'm a sucker, and then headed into Super Nintendo World, which was really fun. It was a little hard to navigate with the slick steps from the rain, but the whole world is just eye candy. And there's so much stimulation. I just found myself compulsively hitting every block I saw. I did some of the mini games, which were good, but would be way more fun with my kids. Then I did Mario Kart with a 30-minute wait. This ride surprised me. I had seen some videos of parts of it online, but the videos really don't do it justice. There was part of me that just thought that having a slow-moving Mario Kart ride was a mistake, but I was wrong. I totally get it now. And the way that the ride intermixes screens, physical sets, and the AR glasses, it's really fun, and delivers a video game experience in a dark ride. Not the best ride in the park, but a really great ride, and I think it will be a big crowd pleaser. I then got on Yoshi, which was basically a walk-on. That's about the right amount of time to wait for this ride. Maybe 15 or 20 minutes max. I wasn't thrilled with Yoshi, but I wasn't underwhelmed by Yoshi. I was whelmed. Thoroughly whelmed. Yoshi has some really cute moments and scenes, gives you great views of the land, and there's this really cute press the right color egg game that made me feel like a very smart baby. But the issue is that I called this a people mover-ish ride earlier. It should be a full-on people mover, a Yoshi mover. But it only goes over about a quarter of the land, and it's very short. If this was a 10-minute loop around the entire perimeter of Super Nintendo World, this would possibly be my favorite ride. Okay, that might be a stretch, but as is, it's fine. Don't wait more than 20 minutes for it. As soon as I left Yoshi, I noticed a mad dash of people running to Donkey Kong Country because Minecart Madness had been down most of the day, but it had just gone back online. But by the time I noticed this, it was already a 60-minute wait. And I had heard horror stories on TikTok about the ride constantly breaking down and people ending up waiting for hours for this 2-minute ride. So I didn't want to risk it, especially because almost every other ride at this point was 30 minutes or less, including Hiccups Wing Gliders, which I was really excited to check out. By the time I got over to Berk, the sun was peeking out, which felt great, but also I noticed that the line at Hiccups Wing Gliders looks like it will be particularly miserable to wait in during a hot day. There's very little shade or covering. The Slinky Dog comparison is real. What is up with making roller coasters that are great for children, but lines that are actively hostile for children? Anyway, like I said earlier, the ride itself was awesome. Some really fun surprises. Just the perfect level of thrill for a family coaster. One of the bank turns over the water actually got me feeling a little woozy, which made me nervous because the next ride I really wanted to check out was Stardust Racers. Now here's the thing, I loved big roller coasters when I was a teenager. But as I've gotten older, my body hasn't loved them as much. Disney coasters feel like about as much as I can handle. Even Guardians felt like my limit. So if Hiccups Wing Gliders was making me woozy, maybe Stardust isn't for me. I almost chickened out. But I went to the ride and very nervously asked the first team member how intense it was. She said it's a roller coaster, which wasn't very helpful. The next team member said it's intense, but not quite as bad as Velocicoaster. That was much more helpful, but for someone who hasn't been on Velocicoaster, not that particularly helpful for me. But they did say that the yellow side is slightly friendlier. So I thought, well, I'm here already.
All right, I'm doing this.
I scanned my face, put all my belongings in the locker, and very nervously got on the ride. And holy Stardust, you guys, I think I'm back into big roller coasters.
That was incredible. That was the best coaster I've ever been on.
This was just such a blast. The best launch I've ever experienced. I won't spoil it, but it does something really special. And the ride has so many great twists, turns, and just a crazy amount of airtime. My restraint was ramped down hard, and I was still flying out of my seat. I don't understand how that works, but it was so fun.
The way that the coasters, sometimes they're beside you, sometimes they're below you, sometimes they're above you. The other coaster, the dueling nature, it's just, this is like a true successor to Dueling Dragons, which I loved back in the day, but that coaster was rough. And this is just buttery smooth.
I got off of Stardust just buzzing. I think if you find big coasters intimidating, give Stardust Yellow a try. It is intense, but also so much fun. The next day I went on Guardians at Epcot, which didn't feel nearly as intense as the previous times I've done it. But I actually had way more fun on Guardians that ride because I wasn't holding on for dear life. This might be a life-changing coaster. So at this point it was around 6 p.m. and the weather was absolutely beautiful. I could have run around and gotten on some more rides that I missed, but when the rain was at its worst, I snagged a reservation for Atlantic, which I had heard was the park's signature dining experience. Because I figured I would enjoy getting some time sitting down in a nice restaurant after fighting the rain and soggy shoes all day. And my instinct was right. This meal was divine. The restaurant is beautiful. and I got an amazing table just by the window overlooking the water and the fountains. My server Kay was just wonderful and gave me fantastic recommendations. I ordered way more than I normally would, but her recommendations were just that good. I got the crab cake as an appetizer, priced at $18 and was fantastic. The shrimp pasta, which was $28 and was so good. Kay said it was the single best thing on the menu, and I believe her.
Yeah, I'm gonna need a moment. That is so good. This is my type of dish. I love a good shrimp pasta, and this is an excellent shrimp pasta.
I also got a sand dollar, which is like a pina colada on the rocks. Not too sweet or heavy, and definitely rivals the steel drum smash as far as tiki drinks go. It was just so nice to take a break and really reflect on this park. The only thing that was kind of iffy about the experience was the dessert, which was the Landlubbers Snickerdoodle Loot. Don't get me wrong, it tasted delicious, but look at this. This is obviously designed to be a dessert for a family to share. There's cookie butter ganache for the parents and little starfish and shark gummies for the kids to enjoy. And here I am as an adult man by himself eating ganache out of a plastic toy bucket. That didn't deliver the elegant vibe the rest of the meal gave. Now, Atlantic is a great theme park splurge. The menu here is a little on the pricey side, like they have a $48 lobster roll. But if you stick to the shrimp pasta or the burger, and then split an appetizer or skip it, it's totally doable for the great ambiance. I definitely recommend it, with a caveat. My meal took about an hour and a half, which isn't too bad. But I went at a slower time for dinner. When this theme park is actually open, I could see meals taking 2 hours easily. Depending on your priorities and how many days you're spending at Epic Universe, you might want to prioritize the rides and shows instead.
I'm anxious to get back out there and explore more of Ministry of Magic, but the vibes here are immaculate.
Atlantic is a great second or third visit restaurant for Epic, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for your first Epic day. After my dinner, I finally checked out the Ministry of Magic, and this land just blew me away. It does feel like the best World Showcase pavilion ever made that somehow features wizards. This world is insanely rich and detailed, and has a scope only really rivaled by Pandora and maybe Galaxy's Edge. It was also just really cool to have a themed land that had tons of alleys to go explore. I just really enjoyed looking in all the windows, reading all the signs, and chatting with all the paintings.
Oh, well, James, where are you off to next?
I think I'm gonna head over to Darkmoor.
Oh, that sounds intriguing.
I got to go through the Metro Flu to check out the British Ministry scene, and the flu powder effect seemed to be hit or miss for a lot of people. The timing didn't always quite line up. Sometimes it would trigger after you walk through. Now, I do have a little criticism. The land itself feels a bit unbalanced. It was very clearly designed with 2 attractions on each end and 1 show in the middle. But the second attraction got cut, so it feels a little empty on the side opposite of Battle at the Ministry. There's a small butterbeer bar over there and some shops, but yeah, the land has a weird lopsided gravitational pull right now. Kinda like Galaxy's Edge the few months before Rise opened, but it will probably be years before we get another Potter ride here. But that's a quibble for the Quidditch world. I tried to get on Monsters one more time about 30 minutes before park closing, but the ride broke down, so instead I took in some of the sights after sunset. And man, this park sings after dark. This might be the best at-night theme park in the world. Darkmoor is creepy, Nintendo is bright and beautiful, Berk feels serene and calm, and Ministry of Magic felt like exploring a city at 2 a.m. Celestial Park is my favorite world at night though. I gazed at the carousel, watched a bit of the fountain show, which all the lights throughout Celestial Park are synced to. And then I made it onto Stardust Racers right as the park closed, which is an otherworldly experience, especially with a full moon. Stardust is a different ride at night. The track isn't lit, but the ride vehicles are. And really all you can see is the other car and each of the worlds lit up. I ended my day by roaming around the park as long as I could in the dark, which was about an hour after park closing. And then I went to get a nightcap at Bar Helios, the rooftop bar at the Helios Grand Hotel. Despite the rain, I had an epic day. Now, I wasn't really expecting to do a detailed blow-by-blow recap like that, but it all helps give context to the judgment portion of the video. So here are 7 things I liked about Epic Universe. First of all, the lands themselves really impressed me. Each world has its own distinct personality, and the whole portal concept helps everything feel cohesive. When you are in a world, you are fully in it. Plus, the scope and level of immersion is just wonderful, and everything is even better at night. 2. The level of detail and delight that was put into the design. There were so many different little things that just made me go, wow, they really went all out. As a theme park fan, this is one of the most fun parks to just explore while admiring all the little details. And I know that I only scratched the surface. 3. The layout of the park. It's actually really easy to navigate and pretty easy to get from one end to the other. The hub and spoke remains undefeated. 4. The rides. Even though I didn't do everything, every attraction I went on I really enjoyed. Monsters Unchained and Stardust Racers are easily top 10 rides for me, and maybe even in the top 5. I also really enjoyed Mario Kart and Hiccups Wing Gliders. Both feel immensely re-rideable. While I'm not exactly itching to get back on Yoshi or see Untrainable Dragon again, I wouldn't be opposed to it. 5. The food. Everything I ate was fantastic, and the reputation of the other food offerings in the park is really good. I'm really excited to try out more. 6. The music, especially at Celestial Park, which adds to the Epcot feeling that I mentioned earlier. But each world has a great soundtrack, like the original Danny Elfman score in Darkmoor. It really makes me wish that Disney would add a soundtrack to Galaxy's Edge while you're inside the land. It's counterintuitive, but having background music adds to the immersion of visiting these worlds that you know from movies and video games, even if it's not diegetic. Music is a huge part of how we experience Harry Potter or Nintendo or Star Wars, and Epic Universe delivers on that. 7. Exploring a new theme park is really exciting, but the thing that I appreciated maybe most of all was the simplicity of everything. After trying to manage different ticket types in Lightning Lane for Disney World, our party had a blend of Disney tickets, some that required reservations, some that didn't, so that meant that buying Lightning Lanes was a confusing mess and changing plans was an ordeal. I love that I didn't have to bother with any of that at Universal. I could just show up to the park and follow my nose. I checked the app to see what had a short wait time or to mobile order food, and that was it. I wasn't checking my phone as soon as I scanned into a ride or refreshing to try to get a last-minute cancellation for Frozen. It just made for a simpler experience where I could focus on having fun. So that's the good, but here are 7 problems that I had with Epic Universe. 1. There's not enough shade, especially in Celestial Park, but also in certain lines like Hiccups Wing Gliders. This may be a brutal park to visit in the heat of the summer. 2. I love the worlds, but they aren't perfect. Darkmoor feels a bit too small, and Curse of the Werewolf doesn't quite look great in the land thematically. Potter feels unbalanced with just one ride. Nintendo is hard to navigate. Isle of Berk is the only world that really feels complete and fully cohesive. 3. The Celestiki Bar. And I admit, this is petty, but a cosmic tiki bar should be my favorite place in Orlando. Instead, it's just fine. This is the one place that I wish they went more all out on theming and detail. 4. Yoshi should go around the entire perimeter of Super Nintendo World. 5. And this is a big one. Epic Universe is simply not a good park in the rain. I had a good time because I'm a theme park sicko, but I was so glad the rest of my family wasn't with me there for that day. There's not a ton of covering, and there's not a lot to do when it's raining, because so many rides just don't work in the rain. Plus, a lot of the wonderful walk-around characters don't come out while it's raining, and it's Florida where it rains a lot. I've never been to a major theme park that has been so limited due to the rain, and Epic needs a few more indoor attractions before this will be fixed. And the problems with the rain are exacerbated by the next issue. 6. There are a ton of stairs. Every single attraction I did had stairs in the line, sometimes multiple sets. And there are stairs in the restaurants, stairs to get by the fountains, just so many stairs, especially in Nintendo World. Now, I like stairs, it's good cardio, but they can be a pain. My watch tracks how many steps and flights of stairs I do each day. I went to Magic Kingdom the day before I went to Epic and did 25,000 steps and 6 flights of stairs. On my Epic Universe day, I did 27,000 steps, but 70 flights of stairs. Mamma mia. Because it was slick from the rain, I saw someone fully slip and fall flat on their back in Nintendo Land. Thankfully, not on the stairs. I don't know how it wasn't on the stairs because that whole land is stairs, but many of the stairs that I went on were slick from the rain or people's wet shoes, so I had to be very careful all day, outside and inside. Now, there are accessible options like elevators and ramps, which is good, but that can also add time to your day if you need to do it so constantly. And even if you aren't someone in a wheelchair, you might want to seriously seek out some of the elevators, like if you have a bad knee or have little kids that need to be held at certain points. And that gets me to my 7th and biggest criticism. This isn't really a great park for little kids. And I mean really little kids, like 6 and under. Isle of Berk, there's a lot there for the whole family. My kids would have a blast there. It's easy to navigate, there's tons of dragons to see, the Untrainable Dragon Show is a delight, the Toothless meet and greet is great, there's the playground, and the fire drill ride looks like a lot of fun for little kids. But Hiccups Wing Gliders has a 40-inch height requirement, and it's a bit intense for a really little kid. My son is 4.5 and went on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train for the first time, and that was a little too intense for him. Now, every kid is different, but Hiccups would definitely be too much for my little guy. And Dragons Racers Rally has a 48-inch height requirement, which is pretty tall. That's the same as Tron. In fact, almost all of the rides have a height requirement, even Yoshi at 34 inches. My daughter is 18 months and pretty tall for her age, and she barely got on Alien Swirling Saucers, which is 32 inches. So the only rides she could do are Fire Drill and the Carousel, but maybe. Both say no handheld infants, which is a hilarious phrase that I don't quite understand. I guess that means no lap sitting, which depending on the ride vehicle might work if she could sit next to an adult. My son is 42 inches tall, so he could do a lot more, but I only think he'd really enjoy Mario Kart and Yoshi of all the rides available. So 2 rides that we could do all together as a family, and 2 more rides that my 4-year-old son would really enjoy. Plus, the Nintendo Land isn't really a great place to let little kids run around because of all the stairs. The interactive games are great, but you need to pay $44 per band to unlock them. I think the Ministry of Magic World would be lost on really little kids, and Darkmoor is kind of a non-starter for kids that age. And in the case of my family, it wouldn't have been great to bring the grandparents either, because one of them really doesn't like thrill rides, and there are a ton of stairs. But if your kids are older, like 8 and up and especially 10 and up, Epic Universe is a totally different story. And that finally brings me to, should Disney be worried about Epic Universe? Well, there are different types of worried. Like, there's being worried because a werewolf is chasing me through the woods and I'm running for my life kind of worried. Disney doesn't need to be that type of worried. Remember that New York Times article I mentioned about 10 years ago? Universal said that their whole goal with this park is to become the primary destination for an Orlando vacation and make Disney the add-on. Well, in that same article, the Times cites business research firm MoffettNathanson with a projection that Epic Universe will draw 10 million visitors in its first full year of operation. For context, that's similar attendance to what Islands of Adventure or Hollywood Studios had in 2023. Even more interestingly, MoffettNathanson is predicting that between the opening in May 2025 and the end of 2026, Epic Universe would siphon 1 million visitors from Disney World. Now that might sound like a lot, but let's put that in context. Disney World had almost 49 million visitors in 2023. So if you extrapolate that across 18 months, that would be 73.5 million visitors. Universal taking 1 million visitors away from Disney over 18 months would be about a 1.3% decline. Not great for Disney's biggest theme park resort, but that isn't a Disney killer by any means. And Disney doesn't seem to see Epic Universe as a huge threat, saying that a rising tide lifts all boats in the Orlando theme park arena. Disney Chief Financial Officer Hugh Johnson said, quote, "The Universal guys will gain a little bit of share, but we'll see more category growth than we'll see share loss. Net-net, it sort of works out okay." Even more context, I'm going to be generous and just add the 10 million projected guests onto Universal Orlando's 2023 total attendance numbers, and not assume that there's going to be any cannibalization from Islands or Studios, which there totally will be. So if you do that, Universal Orlando's annual attendance would jump from 21 million to 31 million, still a distant second to Disney World's almost 50 million. Disney's throne in Orlando is safe. But there's another kind of worried. The kind of worried that's like, my spouse has been spending an awful lot of time with their personal trainer, and they seem to be getting really friendly with each other. Disney should be 100% that type of worried. Nothing has gone terrible yet, but unless you start working on yourself and tell your spouse you love them more, it could. I think Disney should be that kind of worried for 3 reasons. 1, everything at Epic is Disney-level quality. That's not to say, Universal has always been garbage quality or anything like that. But if you've been to both resorts over the years, you get it. There are some amazing things in those other Universal parks, and I love Islands of Adventure. But it wasn't until Hogsmeade opened in 2010 that really people saw, wow, Universal can do something on the same level as Disney in terms of theming and detail. That was a seismic event in the theme park landscape. Epic Universe is oops all Hogsmeade. Everything is on that level, and way more after 15 years of learning. As a Disney fan, this was the first park that I've been to outside of Disney that totally felt like being at Disney. 2. Going to Universal is just a simpler experience. There are no park reservations whatsoever. Universal's Express Pass is so much simpler than Lightning Lane. I didn't feel the stress of having to wake up at 7 a.m. days in advance to pre-book my fun. And like I said, it felt really good not to have to constantly check the app while I was at Universal. 3. The mix of IPs is really smart. One thing that Disney has had over Universal over the years is that they have properties that are beloved across generations. We grew up with it, and then we share it with our kids, so when we go on the Millennium Falcon or see Mickey Mouse together, it's a delight for both parents and kids. Universal has never quite had as much of that in their parks. There have been the grown-up rides and then the kiddie zone off to the side, like Woody Woodpecker area or DreamWorks Land. Once again, this has improved over the years and there are exceptions, but I think one of the key ingredients to Potter's theme park success is that it spans generations. Parents and kids love it equally. Well, with Epic, you have more Potter, and then you have How to Train Your Dragon, which I'm a little too old to have that hit for me nostalgically, but I enjoy it. And I know people who are about 10 years younger than me who adore those movies from their childhood, and now they're having kids of their own. It's a cross-generational play and the best lane for families. But the big one is Nintendo. I grew up loving Nintendo, and every generation of kids since the 80s has grown up loving Nintendo. It's the biggest cross-generational IP here, and arguably the biggest cross-generational IP in the world. And the Universal monsters have been popular forever. While it doesn't play for really little kids, I think older kids will find it cool how dark and dangerous Darkmoor feels. For my family with a 4-year-old and 1-year-old, a Disney vacation still makes way more sense. There are just so many things to do with really little kids and with the grandparents in tow that we all can enjoy. Disney parks feel built to cater to us as an audience. And Epic doesn't change that. But for a family with older kids like 8 and up, a family who's more into thrill rides, who have Nintendo fans and Potter fans, this park feels exactly targeted to them. And that is kind of the sweet spot. The whole reason that there are Disney adults now is that we went to the parks when we were that age and have amazing memories. We're all just trying to recapture that magic. Now that Universal has 3 theme parks and a water park, plus new hotels that are reasonably priced, I could see a lot of families flipping their usual plans, making Universal the primary destination and making Disney the add-on. And that's a problem for Disney, because they might only have a slight decline in attendance, but if enough families make Universal the main resort they visit, that means that Disney will lose out on a big portion of those guests' vacation budgets. And if those families go and have a great time at Epic Universe and feel like Universal is the park that's easier to plan a visit to because it's simpler to understand, maybe their next trip will be another Universal trip. And then you have a generation of kids who grow up making those core theme park memories with Mario instead of Mickey. Universal adults aren't really a thing now, but they could very well be in the future. Disney has to respond, and they already have with a lot of discounts this summer. I did a price comparison between spending 4 days at Universal versus Disney this July. And while Universal tickets are significantly cheaper this summer, Disney is running aggressive deals like half-off kids tickets and discounts at their resorts. Staying at a value resort at Disney in July is significantly more affordable than staying at a Universal value resort. The last time we saw something this big in Orlando was the opening of the Wizarding World in 2010. That wasn't a Disney killer, but it made Disney worried. They responded with huge new attractions and lands, like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, Pandora, and Galaxy's Edge. A lot of Disney fans have criticized Disney for not responding enough to Epic, but in a way, Epic is Universal's response to those massive Disney expansions. And I think Epic Universe will be like the first Wizarding World opening, but on a completely different scale. It won't dethrone Disney, but it will majorly shake the boat. Disney will now respond over the next few years with expansions coming to Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, and Magic Kingdom. And hopefully they'll continue to bring back guest perks that make the experience even better and hopefully simpler. As a Disney fan, I loved Epic Universe. And even with all my criticisms, I really cannot wait to go back. But that doesn't diminish my love for Disney World in any way. Those parks are still so special. Universal having something new and great doesn't change that. Yes, Disney should be worried about Epic Universe, but Disney fans shouldn't be. Competition is a really good thing. This has been James from Guide to WDW. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you real soon with more on Epic Universe and some regularly scheduled Disney videos.